Austria-Hungary started its naval expansion program in the 1890s, trying to catch up to the other major powers in Europe. As a reaction to the British Naval Defence Act of 1889, Admiral Hermann von Spaun, Commander-in-Chief of the Austro-Hungarian Navy, pushed for a greatly expanded and modernized fleet. Of course, they did not have the same amount of resources as the Royal Navy, not to mention the meager financial and economic background, but the dual monarchy tried nonetheless to become a true great power in the era of colonial empires. Lacking colonies, the main objective was coastal defense, guarding the Dalmatian ports against any Italian or even Russian incursion. These efforts were then further bolstered in the 1900s under Vice Admiral Rudolf Montecuccoli once he became chief of the naval section of the War Ministry in October 1904. The plan was to have 12 modern battleships, accompanied by 4 armored cruisers, 8 scout cruisers, 18 destroyers, and 36 torpedo boats, but 6 submarines were also included, as these boats were rapidly becoming an essential part of all modern navies. In this video, I will talk about these Austro-Hungarian U-boats, listing each class, some of their technical details, and their pre-war history. In the first round, domestic options were considered. Already in early 1904, shortly before Montecuccoli took office, Constructor General Siegfried Popper had submitted his first design for a submarine, but almost immediately technical problems were encountered. The Naval Technical Committee sent its specifications in January 1905, which called for a single-hull sub with a length of 22 meters, which would displace 134 metric tons when surfaced. Given the fact that domestic engineers were not at all familiar with submarines, Montecuccoli himself remained very skeptical, and his sentiments were shared by the other leading officials of the War Ministry. The naval section was not at all satisfied with these plans, and subsequently rejected all public proposals as well in 1905. The Kaiserliche und Königliche Kriegsmarine then decided to order 3 different foreign designs, with 2 submarines in each class, to test them and compare them to each other. Thus, 2 American companies, namely Lake Torpedo Boat and Electric Boat, and the German Germania Werft of Kiel were able to sell their own designs and also deliver 2 boats each. These were mainly smaller, experimental ships, already outdated, but by extensively testing them, the k.u.k. Kriegsmarine gained an insight into this new method of warfare. U-1 and U-2 were delivered by Simon Lake's company in 1909 to be extensively tested in the following years. They were 30 meters long, with a displacement of 230 tons while surfaced, with 2 gasoline engines and 2 electric motors, 2 propellers, a double hull, a diving chamber for underwater missions, 2 retractable wheels that would allow travel over the seabed, and a 17-man crew. Each sub had 3 45-centimeter torpedo tubes, 2 in the bow and 1 in the stern, with 5 torpedoes overall. Subsequent trials in 1909 and 1910 revealed that underwater maneuverability was good, but the wheels were almost useless, and the gasoline engines were unreliable and potentially dangerous to the crew due to a risk of poisoning and internal explosions. Maximum depth was set at 40 meters, and even though the time needed to fully submerge the boat was almost halved during the tests, replacement diesel engines were needed, along with other modifications. In the meantime, strict censorship was implemented by the government in early 1910 to prevent the public dissemination of the results. Both subs were commissioned in 1911. They were then mobilized during the 1912 Balkan crisis between Austria-Hungary, Serbia, and Russia, followed by demobilization after the signing of the Treaty of London, which created independent Albania. These boats resumed their training duties, but in 1914 they were in dry dock in Pola, awaiting their new diesel engines, batteries, and periscopes, so they were not operational at the outbreak of the war. U-3 and U-4 were designed and built by Germania Werft of Kiel. They were based on the first German U-boat, the U-1. They proved to be more reliable and more comfortable for the crew, but they had the worst diving abilities, along with extensive exhaust smoke. They were also delivered in 1909 with 2 kerosene and 2 electric engines, a double hull, and 2 bow torpedo tubes with up to 3 torpedoes. They were 42 meters long, with a displacement of 240 tons while surfaced, but the hull was reshaped by the German engineers after extensive trials to improve diving speed. The 21-man crew conducted reconnaissance missions as testing continued. Both submarines served training purposes. They were both commissioned in 1909, shortly after delivery, serving as training boats, performing several cruises each month. During the war, a 37mm quick-firing deck gun was installed on both subs to improve their armament. U-4 eventually went on to become the longest-serving Austro-Hungarian submarine, surviving the war and sinking several enemy ships. The 2 boats of the U-5 class were based on John Philip Holland's design, which was identical to that of the US Navy's C-class submarines. They had a single, teardrop-shaped hull, gasoline and electric motors, 2 bow torpedo tubes with 4 torpedoes overall, and they displaced 240 tons surfaced. They were partially built in the US, but then Whitehead completed them in Fiume, which delayed their launch. The company built a third boat as well, with all-electric engines, in the hopes that they would be able to sell it to Austria-Hungary or another country, but their offers were rejected twice, as the first 2 vessels were still being evaluated. It was a wise decision, because subsequent trials of the first 2 subs revealed problems with ventilation. The crew was endangered by the toxic air inside the boat. However, both of them were commissioned in 1910, while Whitehead improved the electrical and mechanic system of the third sub, originally named SS-3. As I just mentioned, the K.u.k. Kriegsmarine rejected the boat twice. The manufacturer tried, unsuccessfully, to sell it to other interested parties, but eventually it was purchased after the outbreak of World War I, and then it was commissioned as U-12. After a few years of testing, based on the available results, the Navy selected the Germania Werft design, the 506D, over the other 2 competing types. Once the decision was made, they ordered 5 more boats from the German manufacturer. This was to become the U-7 class, with 5 larger subs, as they were now 65 meters long, with a displacement of 695 tons surfaced. They were armed with 5 torpedo tubes and a deck gun, and with twin diesel and twin electric motors for propulsion. They were ordered in 1913, but they could not be completed before the outbreak of hostilities, so in November 1914, they were sold to the Imperial German Navy. They were subsequently redesigned and assigned the numbers U-66 to U-70 and received their German crews. Thus, when the Great War started, Austria-Hungary had 6 experimental submarines, mainly for testing and evaluation purposes. They were small, relatively slow, suffered from technical difficulties, and armed with only a few torpedoes each, so they did not pose a major threat to the Entente, mainly the British and French navies. Their main advantage came from the fact that anti-submarine measures were almost non-existent in 1914, so, properly placed and commanded, they had a real chance even against large warships. However, due to the fact that the K.u.k. Kriegsmarine focused on coastal defense, their role in the war would be very limited. In the next video, I will discuss the Great War and what each submarine class was able to achieve. Thank you for watching.